On the call. You're very welcome to our discussion this morning. Hopefully it's less of a presentation and a little more of a discussion about the Fulbright program and opportunities for University of Limerick students and academics. So it's nice to have everybody here today. I'm not going to go into massive detail about the programs and the awards because I think you'll find that information, and I think you will need to look through that information should you decide to apply. I think really today we're going to focus on who should apply, why you should apply, and actually finish with the comment to say, do apply. You know, we strongly recommend that you do apply, and there are lots of good reasons for that. So a little bit about the program. It's in its 75th year. It was set up after the Second World War. The basis for setting it up by Senator Fulbright was that so many awful things had happened during the Second World War, and he felt that a lot happened because people didn't understand each other. They didn't understand the culture. They didn't see them. They saw them as somebody else. So he managed to utilize funding that was left over after the war, fought for putting the program in place, and set it up from 46 onwards. Initially, he expected to have 8 countries join. It's now up to 180 countries. So that's a very, that shows a success and the fact that it's endured for 75 years. Ireland joined the program in 57. We set up the commission that exists now and that you would deal with. There are 49 commissions around the world. The rest of the programs operate out of versions of the US Embassy or external offices from that. So we're lucky in Ireland that we have a commission. It's very binational, so the Irish and US governments fully fund the program. So about Fulbright, really we're looking for passionate and accomplished people, and that could be a piece of string. You know, everybody, I guess, at some level is passionate and accomplished. We're looking at students, scholars, artists, teachers, professionals, probably a longer list than we can fit on a PowerPoint page, but please see yourself there. You know, and it's across all disciplines to research or study or teach or lecture in the US. So this is a binational program, obviously, just to verify that between Ireland and the United States, and it goes in both directions. What do the awards provide? Well, the awards obviously are going to provide a monetary grant. They also provide visa administration, which sometimes is not inconsiderable. Accident and emergency insurance when you're on your Fulbright award, and cultural and professional programming. I think Jean McCarthy, who's on this talk and representing UL, will probably speak a little bit about that. But you will have programming in Ireland and in the United States, and there's some great opportunities come from that. And I think the softer part of it is ongoing support and links to global network of Fulbright alum. As we said, it's in 180 countries. It's a very well-known and very prestigious award, but it's also a well-loved award. And I think at the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about that. It can be an experience of a lifetime. You know, so it's something you can choose to continue with or step in and out over your lifetime, or have the experience and move on. Most Fulbrighters do stay engaged at some level and stay engaged with the Commission, with the Alumni Association in Ireland, and also with each other and at a global level as well. So it's very much a family. You know, and I think most Fulbrighters would verify that point. This isn't just a grant award. This is actually becoming part of something else, something bigger. And you know, it has a family. You know, Fulbrighters consider themselves family and recognize other Fulbrighters. So I'm going to pass over to Jean in a couple of minutes, but the details of her experience and the fact that she's heavily involved with Fulbright and also with the University of Limerick, a very dynamic person. And I would suggest if you have any questions, do reach out to Jean. She'll give you some great answers. And I'll come back to her just after I finish speaking about the Irish Awards. So the Irish Awards are open to Irish and EU citizens. We accept EU citizens who have been living in Ireland for more than 3 years. We go a little bit against the grain in terms of other Fulbright commissions in Europe by allowing this. They typically just go by passport. But we actually recognize the valuable input by our European friends who have been resident in Ireland for 3 or more years. So a key thing, I guess, and we've highlighted it here, is to demonstrate a strong rationale for where you're going to in the US, also why you're going to the US. You must comply with the 2-year home rule visa requirement. It's part of J1, special J1 visa that you must, if you wish to subsequently go to the US for a longer period of time, that you must have spent 2 years back in Ireland. If you're not going to go for a longer period of time, then it's not going to be any issue for you. You cannot be a dual US and Irish citizen. You cannot be living in the US at the time of application. You cannot have recent extensive experience of studying or living in the US. That doesn't mean you won't have some experience of the US, but recent extensive experience. If you have any queries about that and about your time that you may have already spent in the US, by all means contact the Commission and we can give you advice on that. The application process, something we all love and dread, but I can say that from my experience, and my experience in particular talking to Fulbrighters who've been successful, applicants who haven't been successful, applicants who've reapplied and then been successful, they would all say that it's a very worthwhile process. And there are many reasons for that. The point is that this forces you to think a little bit about yourself, think about where you want to go to in the future, think about who you are as a person, what you're passionate about. So the process and the application process is so much more than just talking about the work you want to do, but it's very much about you. And I think one of the themes that you'll see through this presentation is that we really want to find out about you, not necessarily you through the prism of your work, but actually about you. The application timeline then, we will open probably 31st of August will be the time when the Irish application process will start. It will close on 31st of October. Then in November to December, we'll carry out technical reviews. And then if you're called for interview, that will be probably late January to early February. And we would expect to come back with offers in March 2022. So knowing that, then you're planning, we're well in advance of the time when the programs are opening, but this gives you some time for planning. I would say, please do review the information on the website. Consider what award you might apply for. I'm going to come back to this in a minute, but I would say don't necessarily go for what's obvious. That may be an opportunity, but there may be other opportunities as well, so please explore that. Find a course in the US or plan a research proposal and consider where you might do that in the United States. Also research what it means to be a Fulbrighter. We're very interested in people and people with impacts, and one of the ways you can explain that to us is understand what other Fulbrighters have done and what the Fulbright program is about. It's about exchange, it's about cultural exchange. It's less so about the work you're going to do. And I'll say that because we fund across all disciplines. So in one sense, that makes us agnostic about specific disciplines and research. Again, we're very interested in the person and the passion that you will bring to your research, to your chosen discipline, but also in the wider community and in the world. Register then your interest on Fulbright.ie and you'll get further information. The categories that you will come across on the website and as you make your application would be for Irish Student Awards. So they're postgraduate, just to specify that now. Irish Scholar Awards tend to be academics or professionals who have 5 years plus professional experience. We have Tech Impact Scholar Awards. Again, they're for professionals and they're kind of focused on ICT impacts. So you don't have to be the person with ICT. You may want to go somewhere in the US that has a particular program or technology that you wish to apply, or you may be bringing your technology or program or knowledge to somewhere in the US. The Irish FLTA Awards are for Irish language speakers, Irish being a foreign language in the US, which often makes me pause for thought. But this is a unique program in terms of in the Fulbright Awards. I'll talk about that shortly. Finally, there's also the opportunity for the Fulbright Shim Awards. This is where Irish scholars and students can apply. It's typically to the Belgian Commission, and I'll come to details about that now. So the Fulbright Student Awards for all disciplines, again, this is important, for visiting researchers or degree-seeking students. If you want to go to the States to do a master's or a PhD, you must establish an affiliation or apply for a degree course with the United States institution. And you must go for a minimum of 4 months, maximum of 12 months. it is possible that you can apply for an award like that, or you could apply for a program that could be master's or PhD that goes longer than the 12 months, but the Fulbright program will only be in support for the first 12 months of that. For the Scholar Awards, again, in all disciplines, you must have a PhD or 5 years relevant professional experience. Again, this will be to research or lecture in the United States. We would strongly advise that you establish an affiliation with the US institution. I think you should know where you need to go and understand that they are going to support you. And this is something we would certainly look at the very latest by the interview stage. This is a minimum of 3 months and a maximum of 12 months duration. I mentioned a little bit about the Fulbright Tech Impact Awards, and they're unusual across the Fulbright program in 180 countries. And you can go for a minimum of technical minimum of 2 weeks and a maximum of 3 months. We do ask really that you look at 1 month as a practical possibility, just to get yourself engaged and embedded in the United States. But technically you can go for two weeks. And I mentioned the FLTA, Irish Language Teaching Programs, where you get to teach in the United States and you get to also attend courses in the US institution. You don't need to know where you're going. US institutions who teach Irish apply to the Fulbright program to host an FLTA. So successful candidates then will be best matched with an institution that has applied. So again, you just have to apply and be successful as an FLTA applicant rather than understand exactly where you're going to go. And it's a maximum 10-month duration. We do have sponsored awards then, which is different from the All Disciplines Award. Again, some of those are quite broad. For instance, the NUI, National University of Ireland Award, its eligibility is for early stage scholars, but it could be across any discipline. And you would have things like the Smithsonian Institution. I mean, it's a huge institution, so it can encompass many, many disciplines across that. Enterprise Ireland talks about business and innovation. Again, that could be a very broad church. So one of the things there we mentioned in the hint is to be strategy aware and be innovative. The innovative comes from understanding that EPA, for instance, they have a very broad spectrum of research going on, and it may turn out that your area, which might not be initially, you might not consider that it's something they're going to be interested in, but actually a little bit of consideration and maybe look at their strategy, realize that what you want to do is very much aligned with what you might be able to bring to that whole subject area. Similar to Teagasc and Geological Survey of Ireland, these have all of very broad research programs. So again, just be a little bit aware and understand what they might want to do. Mentioning the scholar, all of the awards there, we've just broken them down. I don't think I'm going to go through them in detail here, but you can certainly find them on this presentation when it's sent around, but also on our website. So the application requirements, we are going to look for personal information and your CV. More importantly, we're going to look for a personal statement and a Fulbright statement. This is going to be very much about you and your passions and your interests and where you want to go and what you want to be and what you want to do in the States and what you want to do when you come back. So please consider this. I think for many of us, this is a difficult process. We're very used to writing about our research area or our technology or our publications and talking about everything, even ourselves, through the prism of our research and our discipline. This is not what we're really looking for. This is very much about you as a person and where you want to go and the passion that you're bringing. You will be able to talk about your project statement, and for many people that's a given and something that they can easily rehash. You will need 3 recommenders. We will need transcripts for student applicants. We need a passport copy and samples of work if you're an artist. So we would need 3 hard copies for distribution for the reviewers and the interviewers. And then a letter of affiliation for researchers and scholars in particular. We would need it as soon as possible up front. Students may have applied to a number of courses, so there is some leeway in deciding exactly where you may need to go, but you should have a firm idea for the work that you want to do. So preparing our application again. So the research objectives, again, I think you would typically be confident about the technology or the discipline aspect of it. But I think a part to really understand is how your rationale for why the United States, why not some other country or some other institution around the world. So be clear about that. It should make sense for you first. Identify the specific areas you'll concentrate on, obviously go through your objectives and methodology. But again, the other part that you really need to think about in fleshing this out is what impact this will have on your discipline, your research, and your career. So these are a little bit broader than you might be typically used to writing about. And in some ways, they're probably the more important aspects. The personal statement I mentioned, really we want to find out about you, your professional and personal ambitions and motivations, I said already in terms of what you might want to do in the United States and what you might want to do in Ireland when you come back. We're very much interested in people. We like to invest in people and what those people can bring. In broadening that then, in mentioning, we want to understand all aspects of you. That's the diversity. That's what makes Fulbright a rich program and a rich group of people who remain connected, is to understand who you are and the entirety of your person. Very often people cut off the aspects of who they are because they want to just talk about the research and the work. We actually want to find out about you. So we're very inclusive of applications from all sorts of underrepresented disciplines and categories. Finding a host, who do you want to work with? Typically in the US, people understand and know what Fulbright is, and actually they might be a little bit impressed that you are good enough to apply for a Fulbright program. So that's not a bad thing. It's pushing an open door mostly. So reach out to whoever you think might be most useful to you in terms of your research or the program that you think you want to work under. We'll talk a little bit more about who you can find better information from, but there are many links in University of Limerick, and Jean, who's on the call, will talk a little bit about that. But you can reach out to other Fulbright alumni. You'll find them on our website in Ireland and in the US, and so consider that, use that and decide where might best fit you. It really should make sense to you. It's not necessarily, well, where is the best tick box? Yes, I'm going to get a Fulbright award. Tick box, I'm going to go to an Ivy League college. We've had some of the best experiences are not necessarily there. I've mentioned this before, but I had a discussion a year or two ago with a University of Oklahoma City and asked them, well, what's that university good about? And they thought about it for a minute and they said, well, the greatest number of people working on Broadway have studied at Oklahoma City, not NYU or any other university you might consider. So this happens all over the United States. And I think sometimes in Ireland, we completely forget that it's not just in a couple of enclaves, and some of the best experiences can be outside of that. That doesn't mean that it might turn out that you do need to go to an Ivy League college because exactly, of course, it's exactly what you need. Just be prepared to explain why you need to go wherever you need to go. I'm talking a little bit about the programs that don't require you to find out where to go. You're actually applying to go to, so the Exploratorium in San Francisco, the Harry Ransom Center in Austin, Texas, or the Smithsonian in Washington, DC. You might be able to go a little bit further than DC, but typically a lot of the programs operate out of Washington, DC. But again, have a look at their programs. You will need to apply through their program as well. They will understand that you're applying as a Fulbrighter, but the program that they're taking you in under is part of a wider program that they will do. So you would certainly need to get support from them. We also have for law awards, obviously you can apply like any other discipline. You can apply to do a master's or a PhD across the program. A lot of LLM awards are quite expensive. The fees can be crippling. It can be certainly very large, a lot bigger than you might expect in Ireland. And we do have long-standing agreements with the institutions that are listed here that they will guarantee a fee waiver for that. So that's good, should you choose that you want to go there. If you need to go somewhere else, just be aware that you may need to seek additional funding to support the very high costs of those awards. Again, other associated awards, if you want to go to Florida Polytechnic University, that they would have supports there for you. Also, the University of Southern California for their MSc or PhD programs, they have existing support programs for Fulbrighters who want to be successful, who apply to go there. So the review and interview, again, this is, I guess for a lot of people, this is interesting and a little bit important. But we will want to know, obviously, your academic record and your project statement, and we spoke about that, what might make that up. And at the review stage, we would have a technical expert review of the work you want to do. And it's really a sanity check to make sure what you're doing and what you seek to do makes sense. And that maybe some advisors say, yes, this is the best place to go. That the aspects of cultural engagements, and leadership and the impact that might bring. When you move to the interview stage, then that flips around a little bit more. So more of the interest is then talking about you as a person, your passions, your interests, your impacts, where you want to go, what you want to do afterwards, and maybe what you might know about Fulbright and all that. So don't be surprised if we ask you about you, not necessarily about your work. I mean, we will certainly ask those questions, but don't expect that you need to answer through the prism of your work. We really want to find out about you. I mentioned the Schneiderlin Awards. This is actually an application through the Belgian Commission who run this program on behalf of Fulbright and also the European Commission. So this is for students and scholars. It tends to aim for high-level areas of interest both in the United States and EU. It opens then in December 2021. We don't have a specific date for that yet, but please keep an eye on that. If you do apply, because you're not applying through us, it's very useful if you also advise us that you've applied so that we also know that. So I'm going to take a pause at this stage, and I'm going to welcome a great friend of Fulbright and a great friend of the University of Limerick, and she will never talk about what she does, but she works tremendously hard on behalf of both Fulbright and also the University of Limerick. So I'm very pleased to bring Jane McCarthy on this call. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you, Dara, and thank you for inviting me onto this really important webinar this morning. And hello to everybody else that's here. And thanks also to Rowan for setting up all the links and making sure we're all online. So I suppose I just wanted to introduce myself as Jean McCarthy. I work at the Chemie Business School, but I am the Fulbright Ambassador for the University of Limerick. So I'm more than happy to talk to all of you, regardless of your discipline or your stage in your career, about a Fulbright scholarship and about the application process. And that's I'm passionate about it because I've experienced all the things that Fulbright has to offer as a person. Both at a personal level but also professionally too. So I just want to talk a little bit about my own experience and link that with the reasons why I would like to encourage all of you to consider applying for the Fulbright program, regardless of your discipline, because it is open to all disciplines. So if you're in science, if you're in business, if you're in the arts, if you're a passionate teacher, if you're centered around languages, whatever your discipline is, this program is open to you. And it is the largest and most prestigious fellowship program in the world. And why? So it is, of course, about carrying out excellent work, be that practical work, research-based work, teaching work. But as Dara has said a number of times, this is about finding the Fulbrighter. So what is a Fulbrighter? Fulbrighter is somebody who is passionate about their work and wants to translate their work into real impact for real people in communities, in societies, in organizations, and so on. So if you're somebody who's passionate about what you do, that's the first tick the box. You really should consider applying for the Fulbright program. Dara has taken you through the various awards that are available, and they are many and they are varied, and they certainly have become much more innovative over the years as well, through these really lovely partnerships with a number of organizations. So I decided to apply for a Fulbright scholarship just after I finished my PhD. So I applied for the scholar program, but I was by no means a well-established scholar. I was certainly an early career scholar at that point. So that was in 2012. And I had just completed my PhD in the area of age stereotypes at work and ways in which to facilitate a more inclusive workplace. And one of my external examiners for my PhD was seen as one of the world's leading experts in this area, and she was based at Colorado State University. So it's not a university maybe that many of you have heard of. You've probably all heard of your Harvards and your Yales. And I'll tell you how you can get to those once, through other means in terms of being a Fulbrighter. But Colorado State University is still an R1 level university, so it's still a really high level and has high impact in research. I had been to the States a couple of times, but I had never been to Colorado. But the reason I wanted to do a Fulbright is because I wanted to work with this person who was renowned as one of the world's leading experts in my field so that I could continue my work. So I think that's another important point that Dara has highlighted throughout the course of this morning so far. If you want to go to the States on a Fulbright, you need to, it needs to make sense for you. Why? Why do you need to go to this particular institution to carry out your work or to advance your work? And I think that that's hugely important. So trying to identify who or where you need to work. So whose lab, in what institution, or what particular researcher or team do you want to work with? And it's really worth, between now and the awards opening at the end of August, thinking about that. Where would you like to go and work? Where do you think you will learn the most, or where might you have the most impact? And I think Dara is right. Scholars across the US, they're very familiar with the Fulbright program, much more familiar than people are perhaps here in Ireland. So one of the first things when I got to the States, again, just after finishing my PhD, I was given an office and my phone started ringing from people all around campus saying, "Oh, you're the Irish Fulbrighter. Would you like to come for dinner? Or would you like to attend this session? Or we'd love to hear from you." And that was something that was really new for me. But people in the States are very aware of the Fulbright program and the opportunities that it offers to their institution. So if you think that this, there's somebody or you'd really like to work with, or there's an institution that you'd really like to go and work in their lab to continue your work, reach out to them and say, I'm really interested in applying for Fulbright scholarship, and I'd love to do it in your institution. And it opens a door, it starts a conversation. I would encourage you to do that. Obviously, we have lots of links with US institutions across various disciplines here in UL too. So if you want to learn more about that, or if you have any ideas, please do reach out to me if that's of interest. So I went to CSU, Colorado State University, because the world's leading experts in my field resided there. And I want to talk to you a little bit about the impact of that scholarship before I give you some sort of practical tips for the application process. In terms of immediate impact, one of the greatest things that the Fulbright program offered me and my scholarship was time. You know yourselves, we're so busy, we're teaching, we're grading, we're doing research, you might be studying, doing some exams, we're busy all of the time. And this scholarship allows you to dedicate time to your discipline or your specific project without any other, time pulling at you and your resources. I also got the opportunity to be mentored by the world's leading experts in my field. And I can't tell you how much I learned from that process, from the networking opportunities. I learned how they run a world's leading lab. I learned from them in terms of going through the journal article publication process, which we know is very painful. And I learned a lot from them about that process. And through that, I was able to work on a number of grant applications, book chapters, and journal articles over the course of my time in my scholarship. And that relationship has continued over the past decade with CSU. I also got the opportunity to engage in international teaching experience. So I got to teach at Colorado State University in a number of different schools, based on my, my specialism. And that was really interesting to get teaching experience in, this amazing US campus, and to learn about how they do that there. And that has obviously stood to me in terms of my CV too. So I learned a lot as a teacher, as well as a researcher. And the other thing that in terms of immediate impact, I only went for 4 months, because that's all that I could commit to, given my own personal circumstances. And I still, got a lot out of that. And I also got to travel a lot, even within those 4 months. And the Fulbright program, when you're in the US, offer travel grants to go to another university. So I got to go to Portland State University, for a couple of days. They paid for me to go out there. I got to visit Oregon. I got to see a new part of the States again, and work with, some leading scholars in the field there, and also, gain a teaching experience. And I suppose immediately then, in terms of like, it was about the work, and developing specific knowledge and skills and expertise in my discipline. But I learned a lot, personally, and from a cultural standpoint. I got to work with a really diverse group of people, who came from all over the world, different backgrounds, and I got to learn about them. I got to learn about the cultural heritage of Colorado itself. I got to live at the foothills of the Rocky Mountains, and go horseback riding and go to a ranch. I got to do that a number of times, get to see, squirrels and deer walking across the path on my way to my office. So, these are things that really stood to me and were a really lovely experience in terms of learning more about cultural heritage in different parts of the world. I also got to, take part in the stereotypical college life that we've all grown up with on TV. I got to go to the big college football games to see the cheerleaders and get the big foam hand, and take part in tailgating, and all of this sort of cultural experience that was new to me. I got to do a lot of travel, as well. I got to go to Yellowstone. I got to go travel around Wyoming. These are places in the States I would never have been to or had the opportunity to travel and learn from their people had I not gone on this program. And the other thing as well, because obviously, we're talking about the yesterday, we were talking about politics. I was there in 2012, so it was, Obama's second term, the election process, and Mitt Romney was the Republican candidate at that time. But I actually was there for the November election, and leading up to that, on their campaign trails, Barack Obama actually came to campus to do, a rally, and I got to go to that, and I got to see him speak in person, and I got to learn about Colorado as a swing state. So there was a lot of people I worked with that were, had different political views to me, and that was a new, thing for me to learn, and it was really interesting. And I learned a lot about the Electoral College, which we probably all know more about now, given the last couple of months. But back in 2012, I certainly didn't understand how it worked. So I got to consume, American politics as well, and I learned a lot from that. In terms of longer term impact, Dara talked about this too. This concept of being a Fulbrighter really is a family, regardless of your discipline. So I've got to meet, people throughout the world from different disciplines because I'm a Fulbrighter, and there's a link. There's Fulbright chapters in almost every, university city, across the globe. If you mention that you've been on a Fulbright, it opens doors, to many different places, because so many people that have been really successful in what they do and have had global impact on the world have been Fulbrighters. And even at a more basic level, I've gotten to work, with people in different ways and doing different things. So for example, I went to Washington DC 2 years ago just for a conference, and I was speaking with Dara at the commission about, some other work at the time, and they said, oh, there's a Fulbrighter in the Smithsonian, we'll put you in contact with him. A guy from Kilkenny who's an archaeologist or an archaeobotanist, and I knew nothing about that, got in contact with him. He said, oh hey, I'll take you on a tour, a private tour around, the Natural History Museum at the Smithsonian in Washington DC. That was such an amazing experience. We've become really good friends since. We've worked on a number of projects, and we're currently writing a children's book now, about the importance of cultural heritage. And these are just lovely projects that came out of, you know, meeting people through the Fulbright name. So that's something that I'll have forever. I've obviously, in terms of a scholarly, a longer term impact, I still have really good publishing relationships with the people that I first worked with almost 10 years ago. In 2015, so 3 years after my Fulbright scholarship, they actually offered me funding and brought me back as their international summer scholar. So I got to live on campus in Colorado again, go back and meet all of my friends that I made during my time there. And again, that was also something for my CV, but it was also something I learned a lot from. We've also set up student and faculty exchanges between UL and CSU now as a result of a lot of this work, and I continue to work with the people that I met there. So I can honestly say that it was the single most impactful 4 months of my career. I can say that. And what's been really lovely since in this family sense, I've you know, been embraced by everybody at the Commission and the Fulbright Alumni Network here in Ireland. And we, you know, we get to do some lovely passion related projects that have real impact ever since. And it's such a lovely community to be part of. And I can't recommend it enough. It's yes, it is about you having, you know, really good work, research, teaching ideas, but it is really about you as a person. Are you passionate in terms of making sure your work has an impact, you know, in a particular space and on communities and in real life? So I really do urge you to consider, regardless of your discipline, applying for the number of varied awards that are available. I encourage you to go onto the Fulbright.ie website to explore these awards a little bit more, and also when the awards open in August. So either at the end of August or in early September, I will be running an application workshop in UL as well, if anybody's interested. But in the meantime, I've spoken enough now, sorry. In the meantime, if you've any questions, please just let me know.
Jane, thanks very much. I was going to ask you the question, just what was the standout moment for you on your Fulbright?
Oh, so many, but probably standing in the middle of a large oval about 4 or 5 feet away from Barack Obama, while there were protesters probably 20 or 30 feet on the other side, and learning all about that, and then actually getting to go to an election party. And, you know, when the results come out, half the party leave. It was just, but go and work together harmoniously together the next day. So I think, honestly, I think the cultural understanding was more stand out for me than anything else, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think actually we hear that from both sides, from Americans coming to Ireland and from Irish coming to the US, that actually they go with kind of their considering the work they're doing, but actually come back with just the experience and the engagement. So to some extent, job done on that. Thanks very much for that. Look, I'm continue to share, just talk about the other side. So I've mentioned the US scholars and students who come to Ireland. Now, that's of value. It might not be something that you think you're obviously not going to apply for, but for people on the call here, in terms of the university and department, and maybe of your own research as well, is to be encouraging of US students or US scholars who want to come to Ireland. So they need a host, they need to land somewhere. So there's no reason that it couldn't be University of Limerick. And there's a number of ways that can happen through student awards, of which UL has some, and scholar award. You can also apply to host a US specialist. That's quite a good one. It's an institutional level hosting, where you might have some area that you want to develop and say, well, we would like to bring back some expertise in that. You know, approach somebody in the United States. You say to them, it's for Fulbright. Many academics in the US for Fulbright's on their bucket list. So you're kind of pushing an open door in that sense, you know, and ask them, would they like to be partnering with you and applying for a US Specialist Award? US Global Scholar Awards as well, as where scholars from the US can go to a number of countries, and there's no reason that Ireland and that UL couldn't be one of those countries that they go. So there are a number of ways that you can interact. Obviously, Fulbright US, the Shim Awards are also for US applicants. So again, you can have students and scholars who might want to come to UL. But in terms of just connecting with the United States in a medium that's well understood, that the Fulbright is a medium that's well known and understood in the United States. So they might necessarily know where University of Limerick is, but they certainly, you start the conversation talking about what Fulbright is, and then connect it to the university. So it can be quite an interesting way of creating those international connections, particularly with the US, and particularly with some really, really high profile people. So I mentioned the actual awards. I don't think I need to go through them again. So your next steps, really, you know, it's obviously you want to do things like look at our website, understand what awards you may apply for, talk to a Fulbrighter, such as Jean. There are others in your area as well. If you go onto our website, you will find all the Fulbrighters. You can consider a Fulbrighter in Ireland or even in the United States. Talk to them about their experience and where you might go to and what you might want to do, and even how to best apply for it. You can obviously follow us on social media to get a view for what everybody is doing, what the Commission is doing, and what Fulbright as a program is doing, get a sense for that, and a sense of the engagement and the family of Fulbright. I think the social media is probably a very good place to get that. A point I kind of want to finish on, and Jane did allude to it, is this idea that do apply for a Fulbright Award. Don't self-select yourself out of the process before you even begin. Unfortunately, sometimes that does happen because it is a prestigious award, but it's not an elite award. So, please consider yourself in that and how you might apply for it. And even if not this year, in some subsequent year, if you're an undergraduate on this call, consider that you might want to apply for a Fulbright at an appropriate time, maybe just in the year that you've finished your degree, or if you're going to do a postgraduate sometime during your postgraduate. I would say if any undergraduates are on this call, that it's impressive that you are on this call and you're considering your future already. That's a very positive step. And reiterating the point I made earlier, there really is no downside in the application for a Fulbright Award. It's some of your time, but actually it's time that it's well spent, because you can, even if you don't ultimately apply for a Fulbright, or if you're not successful, you can certainly reuse that. And it's also forced you to consider yourself what you want to do. And you might have time now. Jean mentioned just the idea of having so much more time to consider what she wanted to do, a little bit of time outside what she typically does. We get that very strongly from US academics in particular who come to Ireland, and they've been on the motorway of academic success, but they've had very little time to actually consider what they want to do. So the big part of what they get from it is this time away, and time to consider what they want to do, time to see what other people do it and how they do it, and they go back very, very rejuvenated, and sometimes change significantly what they want to do. Or they created, it's not just about creating networks, it's also about that internal process of taking a little bit of time out. So there are many, many good reasons why you should apply. There are practically no reasons why you shouldn't apply. Obviously, there might be an eligibility issue. There's nothing we can do beyond that. But in terms of everything else, it's really down to a personal decision to say, yes, I should apply. You can apply. So the question is, please do apply. Okay. Now, Rowan, have we any questions, or is there anything we want to discuss?
So Sarah, we've had a couple of questions, especially over the last couple of minutes. So I had one where they're working the health-related work. So I'm a scholar looking to research and teach. My topic covers health-related work, but also humanities. So is it better for this particular person to apply for the HRB one or the General Scholar Award?
That's a good question. I guess looking at the relevance of what you're doing in the health sector, you should maybe define that. It would seem, and again, without knowing more detail, that maybe the HRB, the Health Impact Award, is one the person should seriously consider. but they are completely eligible, obviously, to apply for all disciplines and stuff. So I think a little bit further, think about the relevance. It sounds like there is a relevance for sure with the health impact award.
Yeah, and am I correct in saying that if you apply for a sponsored award, you are considered for the all disciplines subsequent to that as well? Okay. And this same person, they would love to apply for 3 months. 3 months away is difficult, not impossible. Is there flexibility around going for maybe 2-3 week blocks and spending the rest of the 3 months working remotely from Ireland?
No, we don't have a Flex Award. On the basis that this is an engagement program, we don't have a Flex Award. So really, you go in the same period of time. That gives you the opportunity to get embedded and in the community as well. So it's not just about doing the work, but it's actually about your engagement and embedding yourself in the community.
Yeah.
If you, having said that, we've obviously spoken about the Tech Impact Award, which is a very specific award. So if you fit it under that remit, and maybe have a look through that, we can consider.
So another question coming in from a 4-year, so they're early into their 4-year PhD, and they're wondering if it would be more beneficial to maybe wait till later in their PhD, or should they just get an application in right away?
To say I have a definitive answer actually. If you're maybe unsure about the route that your PhD is going to take, or the things you might do, it might be a useful thing to go earlier. If you think that there's a body of work that at some point you would like to do, but maybe it's not something you can do in Ireland, well, then you might consider doing that a little bit later on. Now, I guess early works in a sense that I do conversations with people who've gone for their PhD, and they said, actually, when I was out there, I completely changed, or I found a whole new avenue that was really valid for my PhD. So to consider that was proper to go earlier. I think it's only if you have a specific body of work maybe that you know that you want to do and say, well, actually, I could leave that a little bit later, get that body of work done, and then maybe start moving towards finishing up my PhD.
And then a final question. So about the 2-year home rule. So maybe expand on that a little bit. I think there's a little bit of confusion around that. Yeah,
so this is really that because of the visa, so it's a specialist J1 visa, the US Department of State, actually probably broader than that, Homeland Security, require that you return to Ireland before you will be, for 2 years before you will be eligible for a much longer term residency visa in the United States. If you want to go back to the States on a tourist visa or maybe another short-term visa, you may not have a requirement to fulfill that to your home rule. So it's really only if you see your subsequent future in the States that you would want to spend 2 years back in Ireland. Now, in Fulbright, we encourage that as well, because the idea is that you're developing cultural engagement, then you come back to Ireland and you continue, you bring the network and the links and you continue to work in Ireland as well. So it makes sense on a number of levels.
I think that's all the questions that have popped up. Thanks so much to Jean and Dara for your time. Jean did a load of promotion around this, and it was great to see so many attendees. We do hope to see a lot of applications from you all.
That's a lot, everybody. Please do apply. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Dara and Rowan. Really appreciate it. Best of luck, everyone.
See you.